Hi, I'm Simon Davis, artist on Ampney, Crucis, Investigates and Sinister, Dexter.
Talk a little bit about how how you got into art in the first place.
I think it all can be traced back to, like a lot of artists of my age who work in comics, back to first seeing Star Wars was the most significant, probably one of the most significant moments in my life, and from that point on I was just drawing constantly, and then I moved on to trying to do trying to draw comics, and then I sort of ended up thinking that the only way I could really sort of make money out of art was to work in graphic design. So I did that for a few years and then realised that wasn't what I wanted to do. So and then I moved into comics through relentless trying to sort of send submissions to David Bishop, and who was the then Tharg at 2000, and eventually it paid off. I've always been sort of interested in painting, and my father's a painter too, so that's where I've got the influence, or that from an early age that's where the influence of that came from. And I've always thought that being able to paint properly would be quite important to me, and it has a sort of more longevity and maybe more gravitas, not necessarily about how I paint or whether I'm good at painting. It has more people look at it, or take more time to look at it, whereas with comics it's and quite rightly so, it's quite a ephemeral thing. You know, you read it and then you bin it, or if you're our age you put it into a bag and put it in your loft or whatever. But so I quite like that sort of painting comics that are by their very nature sort of transient, but also painting sort of more sort of formal portraits or whatever, which hopefully will be a bit more sort of stand the test of time or whatever. Quite old-fashioned in the fact that all my work is sort of done in on board and painted in gouache, and I have a product at the end of the day that I deliver to for them to scan or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I keep it very simple, and I work exactly the same way pretty much that I've worked for 20 years, which is just drawing it out in ink, black and white ink, and then obviously the ink isn't white, but you know, black ink on white, and then just paint it with gouache. Gouache is a kind of opaque watercolour, and it's quick, really produces well. The colours sort of on a weekly magazine like 2000, it's important for the colours to be quite true, and so yeah, that's it's all pretty quick. And I don't know whether it's a conscious effort to resist computer work, but I don't know, I just find it simpler and quicker to paint.
You have done quite varied series for 2000 AD. Obviously, Sinister, Dexter is, despite its sci-fi elements, is essentially a crime comic.
Yeah.
You've done Ampney, Crucis, which is very much in a particular historical setting, but you've also done Damnation Station, which is a completely straightforward sci-fi. For such particular style, you seem to have been able to adapt it very well to those different settings.
Yeah.
How have you achieved that?
Well, I must admit, I think you have a sort of a natural aptitude to a certain genre of story, and say with something like Crucis, I have a particular sort of interest in Golden Age detective stories, and that's where that idea was born out of, or from, with long discussions with Ian Edgington, and so I really enjoy that story, and that's probably my favourite thing I've worked on. And something like Sinister Dexter, because they live in a very battered sort of world, and that was full of sort of guano stained statues and all that sort of stuff, and that's the sort of thing I like to paint too. But things like, say, Damnation Station, it's quite sort of traditional sci-fi. I don't think that comfortable with that. You know, people like Henry and Simon Fraser and stuff like that. They seem to be able to produce really beautiful, clean sort of work, and I just never seem to be able to do that. So yeah, things like Crucis, where it's sort of a slightly rural setting, has worked out much better, I think.